Listener, it's not a moment to lose. We've only got 10 days from the opening of Euro 2024. Thank goodness you've joined us just in time to preview. Who's on our panel today for preview number one? Well, we've got Daniel Storey up on the big screen. All right, Daniel?
Hello, James.
Here in the studio, there's Julien Laurens.
Bonjour.
Alvaro Romeo.
Hola, James.
And for a limited time only, James Horncastle.
G'day.
Is he too busy?
Later on, we got Seb Stafford-Bloor talking some Germany, a bit about Michael Jongsma on those Netherlands fellows. Everything sounds like a lot of fun. Before a tournament, eh? All you can think about is just the raw delights ahead, eh, James?
Yes. Even in Germany, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Woo. All right, so many teams, so many contenders. Alvaro, you feeling confident?
I am, yeah. But I think that it's going to be a super open tournament anyway.
Really? Why?
Yeah, because I was checking the final ending of Euro 2021, and 4 of the last 7 games ended in a draw. And for the last time in 20 years, there is no World Cup champion, defending champion, playing the Euro. So I don't think that, apart from France, who they have Kylian, there is not such a team that I would say is overwhelmingly favorite. And there is another narrative that maybe is interesting. The fact that there will be a Ballon d'Or fight here between Mbappe, Bellingham and Vinicius this summer. And depending on how well they do in their respective tournaments, maybe the Ballon d'Or winner is coming out of an international tournament.
Right, we're going to be keeping account of how many times you say Ballon d'Or today, Alvaro. But you mentioned the final of Euro 2020, played in brackets 2021. Let's start with the end of that. Penalties, Italy win. That's right, listener, the final of the last European Championships. Italy crowned European champions. How did they follow that, James Horncastle? By missing out on the World Cup altogether and then losing their manager to Saudi Arabia. Now here they are at a brand new Euros with Luciano Spalletti in charge. How's he getting on, James?
Well, it's too early to judge. He hasn't been in the job a year. And so given the international calendar where you qualify a team between September and December and then nothing happens for 3 months and then nothing happens for another couple of months, he is still working things out with this national team, working out which system to play. They played with a back 3 in the March internationals over in the United States. And so you look at the squad that he's called up, I think there are 11 defenders and wing backs. So it would indicate that he is minded to at least have the flexibility to play with a back 3. But already in the last week, they've lost centre-backs. Acerbi, their most experienced centre-back, because Chiellini and Bonucci no longer there, will miss the tournament because he's undergone surgery. Giorgio Scalvini, youngest player in the squad, who could play centre-back, tore his ACL in the final game of the Serie A season. So it's a work in progress, Jimbo.
All right. Have they, though, sorted out their problems at the other end of the field? Goal scoring such an issue for Italy in the qualifying with the great form that Scamacca's in.
Yeah, although he was dropped for the March internationals, Spalletti wanted to get a reaction out of him. Spalletti had left the impression that there were some players whose attitude he didn't like. He thought that they were in the international camp more interested in winning Call of Duty than the Euros, and that they were always on their phones, on the massage tables and that sort of thing. So he left Scamacca out of those March friendlies. Scamacca responded to that by scoring practically in every game. Was excellent in Atalanta's run to winning their first European trophy, scored in every knockout stage game apart from the final, which was Lookman's final. And so he's made his case to be the number 9 for the Nazionale at the Euros, even though in March, because Retegui scored in both games, if you go back to then, the feeling was, okay, it's Retegui's shirt to lose. Retegui, the player who was scouted in Argentina, was playing in Argentina when Mancini first called him up, didn't speak a word of Italian, and yet has shown himself to have a very prolific record at international level on a very small sample size of games. 4 goals in 6 caps, I think. But you talk about Italy's problems scoring goals up front, James. You could say that's been a problem for the last 12 years, and yet it didn't stop them reaching the final in 2012, even though they had Balotelli and Cassano. In Euro 2016, when they were scraping the barrel and had Graziano Pelle and Eder, They were probably the best team in that tournament. Their performance against Spain in Paris was astonishing under Conte. And then with Mancini last time around, it was Immobile up front or Belotti, and yet they still not only reached the final, but they won the tournament. So
right, and with those goal scorers, how did they do at the last World Cup?
Yeah, no,
and the previous one.
But the point, James, is that it's very easy to say, I don't see a Inzaghi or a Toni or a Del Piero. And yes, you don't see strikers of that calibre, but it hasn't stopped Italy actually being really successful in European Championships in this century, because final in 2000, which they lost, but they got to the final. Final 2012, which they lost, but they got to. They should have gone all the way in 2016, even though it was supposedly the worst Italy squad in decades. And in 2021, they went all the way and won it.
And won it. So, but the reason I mentioned the World Cup, it was just to say, which kind of Italy do you think we're going to be seeing this time?
Well, as I mentioned, they have this better than expected track record in the Euros this century. It's almost like become more of their tournament than the World Cup has, just because they haven't qualified for the World Cup since Brazil. I think it's very early for Spalletti. I don't doubt that in a fortnight leading up to the tournament, he can really drill this team and accelerate the implementation of his ideas and style and all that sort of thing. But, even if they were to go all the way and reach the final in Berlin on July 14th, 15th, whenever it is, he still won't have been in the job for a year.
Wow.
He will be judged like a guy who's been in the job for 4 years. But I think at the front of everyone's minds when they're thinking about Italy is this guy has had, 8 games? In charge, which is not a lot.
No, 8 games, 5 wins, 2 draws with Ukraine, and just 1 defeat, which of course came to England. Back-to-back defeats in the qualifying against England. Should there be a question over the keeper? Do you think Donnarumma still sure of his place? Any chance of?
I mean, that was the first big decision that Spalletti had to make when he took over from Mancini. Was they played North Macedonia, who are the team responsible for Italy not going to the World Cup in 2018. They beat them in the playoff semi-final in Palermo. And they got a point in Spalletti's first game with a free kick late that Donnarumma kind of flapped at. And so immediately Spalletti was told, you need to drop him, play Vicario, because Italy are playing Ukraine at San Siro, where Donnarumma's hated because he walked out on AC Milan to go and join PSG. And he stood by Donnarumma, and Donnarumma delivered in that game, and Vicario went out and celebrated with him in the 90th minute. Donnarumma is the captain of the national team. And I think Jules will speak better than me on how well he's played for PSG this season, bar the Barcelona games in the Champions League.
Yeah, I agree. There's some mistake that we keep seeing, especially on set pieces and especially on corners, where despite his size, seems to be quite reluctant to come out for the ball, which is something that might be an issue here in this competition. But overall on his line and over 7 games, which is what you need for Euros to go all the way like he did in 2021, I think there's enough talent in him to carry this team for sure.
Magnificent.
I mean, people forget he was the player of the tournament at Euro 2021.
Yeah.
And, you can quibble at how they came to that decision, but in the shootout against England at Wembley, and also in the shootout against Spain in the semi-final, he came up big. So, I think the issues for Italy are elsewhere. Chiesa's not been the same player that he showed in those 2 games against Austria and Spain at the Euros. He's had a big injury in between. The midfield is completely different, and the midfield was the big difference for Italy with Verratti and Jorginho. Verratti is playing in Qatar, even though he's 31. Spinazzola was more of an X factor than any of the players because he would overlap on the left-hand side with Insigne. It meant they drew so many attacking players to that, defensive players to that side, that Chiesa was always 1v1 on the right. Spinazzola's not there. So there are bigger issues than the number 9 and the goalkeeper for Italy. That would be my argument.
Fair enough. Do you know there are 4 Italian managers
Are there?
at the Euros? No less than 4.
You mentioned that.
Yeah.
Very nice. That's an 8th. An 8th of all the managers there are Italians. Italy in a group, of course, with Spain, Croatia and Albania. A little bit of precedence there, Alvaro, with Spain and Italy. knocked out by the Italians in the last one, victorious against them in 2012. How is Spain looking? What kind of Spain are we heading towards?
I think that Spain is a rather reliable team. They've been like this for a while now. They qualified for every tournament since 1992, which is, I think that only Germany in Europe has such a record. They haven't lost in 90 minutes in the last 3 major tournaments when they were eliminated. They lost in a penalty shootout in Russia against Italy, and then against Morocco. So that's why it was so infuriating for me that Luis de la Fuente didn't cap or call Lucas Vázquez for the Euros, because I think that in a penalty shootout he would have been a very good tool, but he's not in the squad. And I believe that Spain is a team with the same identity that they had 4 or 5 years ago. I mean, they're still leading the possession rankings of the qualifiers, also the passing accuracy rankings. So in that way, Spain is very, very recognizable as well, with a new manager like Luis de la Fuente, a man that, let me give you a little bit of a human profile. He considers himself proud of being a Spanish, Catholic, and a bullfighting lover.
Okay.
So this is Luis de la Fuente, a rather a traditionalist man. So don't expect him hosting a Twitch show during the Euro, as Luis Enrique did during the World Cup. Basically, before the games, he was having a conversation with his followers online. Luis de la Fuente is not a man like this. But on the other hand, I think that during World Cup 2022 under Luis Enrique, Spain was, and the players were very inhibited. Because they had too many tactical instructions, to the point that I remember against Morocco, just Laporte sending a long ball, the ball went out, and automatically he turned back and he apologized to the bench, to Luis Enrique, because Spain wasn't doing those things. But at the end, they became very predictable. With De La Fuente, Spain is a little bit faster. If they have to send the long ball, they will do it.
Right.
And I will say that in a way, they are slightly more orthodox than they were with Luis Enrique, in the sense that they are doing what you could consider the basics slightly better. They defend better. If they have to play in a certain way, defend deeper, they will do it. With Luis Enrique, there was no plan B, really. With De La Fuente, I think that the team is a little bit more flexible.
Okay. Some exciting young players in there, the likes of Nico Williams and Lamine Yamal. Also Pau Cabrasi.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe this time he will end up marking Mbappe. Let's see.
I will love that, because that would mean that finally they will have a proper encounter.
Right.
Yeah, because I think that he has a chance to play. In fact, Luis de la Fuente may put together in the same lineup Pedri, Nico Williams, Cubarsí, and Lamine Yamal. And that will be playing with 4 players who are under 22. 2 of them will be 17. Lamine Yamal, as soon as he plays 1 minute in this Euro, he's going to become the youngest ever player to play in a Euro.
Right.
So this is Spain right now. The mix of youth and experience, and how De La Fuente blends that, is going to be very important.
Okay, we just said the Spain of before, but with the likes of Williams, Yamal, it does sound quite an exciting attacking, a little bit more speed to them though than there was before. And then you've got Rodri there, who never loses a game famously, except once or twice. Was he not in the Scotland?
The FA Cup final is the last game he lost, which is very annoying because he lost a game finally, literally before the Euros.
Wow.
But I think that that mix is going to be very important. I agree with you. There are some exciting players, Yamal and Nico Williams. They are going to be creative and fun to watch. And I'm not that negative about Spain, because I think that there are 1 or 2 very good players per line. And the goalkeeper has been has clinched the Zamora trophy in La Liga, which is the trophy to the best goalkeeper, Unai Simón. So
you're not negative, because there are so many kind of Basque players.
There are a few.
Exactly.
There's Unai Simón,
Nico Williams.
Laporte will play.
Yeah, but I don't know if he will play really.
And next to him, the guy from Real Sociedad, Romeo.
Lenormand. Well, that's French.
Okay, well, but it plays in the Basque country, so claim him.
Yeah.
Nico Williams.
Yeah. And not many. Merino actually can start as well.
Will Alex Grimaldo, will he get to play?
I think I will tell you 99% yes.
Okay,
because
good.
the other left back is Cucurella.
What are you not positive about then about this team?
The bullfighting.
That if Luis de la Fuente could have said something about bullfighting, that would have been incredible. But he said something in favor of bullfighting.
Wow.
But anyway, this is my message here. But I wouldn't be positive about the fact that we don't have any big star in an influential position to win games. Because Rodri, in my opinion, is probably the best holding midfielder in the world right now, altogether. Perhaps with a couple of more, but he's certainly up there. But up front, Spain doesn't have a player of that caliber. It's too early still for Lamine Yamal, for Nico Williams. And when it comes to the number 9, it's Morata or Joselu. So we are not exactly spoiled because Morata had a bad ending of the season, and Joselu, yes, has been really good for Real Madrid, but he still belongs to Espanyol because he's on loan at Real Madrid. So that tells you a little bit what the story of this player has been.
Wow. Okay, but contenders, a lot of optimism is there in Spain.
The thing is that I don't think that playing against Spain is easy. It's not an easy experience because normally they take the ball off you. Then they've got good wingers who put many crosses in the box. And on top of that, they've got a very settled style that has been with them for 16, 17 years. And they perform it quite well. As I said before, in the qualification, they were the leaders in possession. And, normally they tend to win more games than they lose, that's for sure. So to eliminate them is not going to be easy.
Okay. The group then, Spain, Italy, Croatia and Albania. The top 2 automatically go through. Then 4 of the third place teams from the 6 groups, so 4 out of 6 third place sides, will also make it through. Jules?
Maybe the weakest link in Spain is De La Fuente in the end, because for Spalletti we can mention the lack of experience as an international coach at international level, but at least at club level he's got plenty. De La Fuente has neither of the two, and you can have the best squad in the world, you can have top players, if as a manager on the bench you're not really sure how to handle pressure, match scenario, a lot of things, then maybe that's where there could be a problem for Spain, and maybe to Italy to a certain point, but compared to even just Southgate and Deschamps, for the sake of it, because we're going to talk about England and France after, but who've been there before in those kind of tournaments, it's not the case for Spalletti and De La Fuente.
Okay. Daniel, who do you think from this group?
Albania.
I think Spain will probably win the group. I think I understand the issues about goal scoring with Spain, but the reality is that exactly the same is true of their other likely rivals for the group. So I think so much in the knockout stages is obviously going to depend on Morata's ability to finish chances. I couldn't believe he's still only 31. He's coming. Alvaro, no, he's coming off the back of his joint most prolific league season of his career, which seems very strange. He only scored 15, but that's a peak from Morata. If he fires then and leads the team as captain, then yeah, they can go deep. But the problem with this group is whoever finishes second is likely to play England in a quarter-final, and that's a huge game.
Well, the thing with Alvaro Morata is that his record with Spain is really good as well. If you look at it, the numbers, the ratio, the scoring ratio with the national side is really good. He's been performing for Spain, we can say that. And Spain is also, I don't know if this counts or not, but they won the Nations League a year ago. And they were in the same tournament with Croatia, Italy and the Netherlands. So, as I said before, there is a certain reliability about them. They don't have massive stars to win the games for you, but on the other hand, they know what they are doing, believe me.
Daniel, I wonder if it is England awaiting one of these teams in the knockout stages. Would you rather it was Spain or Italy, who England have just done the double over?
I think historically you'd have said Spain because of that, that kind of death by possession which has stymied England before. But I think with the kind of pressing intensity England have high up the field now, I think they would back themselves to kind of win turnovers, spark transitions and create chances that way. Italy still has that historic hangover despite winning in Naples. I think England would probably rather play Spain just about. We're perfectly capable of losing to both, I should say, in a big game. I think the kind of overarching theme of this tournament, because I don't think there is a standout candidate, and even including France, is that I think those quarterfinal onwards games are going to be decided by one or two moments, just toss-up matches, just exactly the same as Qatar was, quite frankly.
Yeah, as Daniel was mentioning, penalties, such a key thing in recent tournaments. We heard from Wembley how it finished for England, and that was Harry Kane against France.
Was it? I can't remember.
Against France.
So
in the quarterfinals in Qatar.
Quarterfinals.
It was the quarterfinals.
It's not bad quarterfinals.
It's not, but there've been that progression every tournament with Gareth Southgate. Semi-finals of the World Cup against Croatia, taking them into extra time, and then taking it all the way to penalties against Italy at Wembley in 2021, and then World Cup. I don't know, Daniel Storey, where do you see England coming into this tournament under Gareth Southgate?
I think they're in a very strange position in that my personal view is that they are weaker than they were in
Really?
Qatar, and yet they have the top scorer in the Bundesliga by a mile and their record goal scorer. They have the best player voted in Spain and the best player voted in the Premier League too.
So
And
how
yet
are they
I think
worse,
the
do you think?
Because I think the defence is a mess. I think it's a mess in terms of availability. Harry Maguire isn't fit. Luke Shaw isn't fit. Reece James hasn't gone because he isn't fit. Kyle Walker will definitely play right back, but have to do so much more than that. John Stones, I don't think is fully fit. He was brought back in for the FA Cup final and it didn't work out. I think there are so many question marks. If England win this tournament, forget Foden, Bellingham and Kane, Declan Rice will be player of the tournament because he has so much work to do in that midfield. And now we know he's probably going to be paired with someone either who isn't ideal for that role in Conor Gallagher or is incredibly young in Kobbie Mainoo or Adam Wharton.
Who would your 11 be?
I think it would be as close as you can to the last tournament. I don't want too much change. I think I would start with Pickford, Walker, Maguire and Stones if fit, Shaw if fit. If it's not going to be Shaw, I think it will probably be Kieran Trippier playing left back, which seems incredible given all that stuff about the depth of England fullbacks in the last couple of years. I would start Kobbie Mainoo alongside Declan Rice because I think it would allow Saka, Bellingham and Foden to stay high up the pitch behind Kane. And it will be a case of Foden and Bellingham both drifting left and hoping to avoid what we've seen in recent friendlies, which is sort of them getting in each other's way. The idea when they both go out there is that you create that kind of Real Madrid situation with Vinny and Bellingham where you're doubling up on a fullback. But actually, England get a little bit messy in that area. The passes become a little bit predictable and the switch out to Saka doesn't happen often enough. But yeah, it's Declan Rice's team. I honestly believe that if they're going to go deep into the competition, I think they'll be fine in the groups. And then there's going to be a series of huge games from quarterfinals onwards, probably Spain, France, and another. Or Spain and Italy, France and another. And those games are going to be incredibly tight. And England are going to have to be able to cope with being countered at. And that's going to be Rice doing that.
Good Lord. Slovenia, Denmark and Serbia, the other teams in the group. They've got a friendly coming up this Monday night. So probably happen by the time you hear this, listener. That's against Bosnia at St James's Park. So we'll be interesting to see how Gareth Southgate uses that. What role then for Cole Palmer, do you think, revelation of this last Premier League season, Daniel?
I mean, I think he is the first attacking option off the bench, simply because, unlike other nations, Harry Kane isn't going to be withdrawn as a kind of like-for-like striker, and I don't think Kane works as well in a front two, so I don't think they'll bring on Watkins, for example, with Kane. So it will be Cole Palmer on for one of Foden or Bukayo Saka as the attacking change. He can play in any of those roles. He can be that, Gareth Southgate likes to talk about starters and finishers rather than starters and substitutes. He thinks Cole Palmer is a player who can impact the game right the way through, but you can't get everybody in the same team, and you would probably have to drop one of Foden or Bellingham to get him in that team, which is not going to happen. So, yeah, I think he is the first cab off the rank. The interesting thing is whether Southgate goes for the dependables in Jack Grealish as one of his game changers. He's done that repeatedly off the bench. He's already left out Marcus Rashford, who was one of those. Raheem Sterling was one of those who's been discarded as well. So it does feel like a New England. I've sounded a bit negative there, but it feels like an England in transition with the young players coming through. But that is happening at the same time where the expectation around Southgate himself means that I think people are saying, well, you have to win this tournament, even though when you actually look at the strength of the team and the strength of the defence, I don't think it's the best squad.
In other countries, how are England viewed? As one of the absolute favourites?
Yeah, certainly in France as well, because of the result that you mentioned, final, semi-final, quarter-finals in the last three tournaments is important, because if I agree with Dan on some of the defensive issues, they've also been a big improvement individually with a lot of those players. Saka is a better player than in Qatar 18 months ago. Rice is a better player. Bellingham is a better player. You've got Kobbie Mainoo, who's a better player. Foden is a better player. You can even look at Anthony Gordon, he's a better player. So I think there's also been that kind of improvement individually. The problem for me is Southgate, and there's always been Southgate, and will always be Southgate. So this is where, for me, the limit is, even more maybe than the defensive issues and struggles.
I think in Spain they are considered one of the favourites. They've got all the elements to win a tournament. They've got a great scorer, Bellingham, Phil Foden, Players of the Year in Spain and England respectively. They have negotiated the group stage with ease so well. I mean, I remember they were out of Euro 2008, so there was a time when it wasn't a given that England was going to be in an international tournament. They also missed the World Cup 1994. Now they are there. You know that they are very reliable as well. But I don't know if you agree with this, guys, but it's the Premier League peak years right now. But every time England has been eliminated from a major tournament from 2018 onwards, I never had the feeling that the best team had been eliminated. You know what I mean? They are very good, but they haven't left the proper print in the tournaments yet. They've been there, up there, just playing important games, but I don't know. I think that when they got eliminated, I kind of understood it. I thought that there were better teams than them.
And possibly because of the limitation that Jules mentioned. James, where do you stand on this?
Well, in Italy, they are revered still. And, you look at what happened post-Wembley. England have beaten Italy twice. Daniel referenced it earlier. They beat them in Naples. They hadn't beaten Italy on home soil for decades. And then at Wembley, more recently, this season, they showed that they could up the tempo in a way that, at that moment, it was only Spalletti's third game, Italy weren't ready for it. But I share the same reservations as Jules. I think ultimately Southgate has had more success than any England national team coach than Sir Alf Ramsey. And some of that is down to him, the environment, the culture that he's been able to build into the national team setup, how different it was, for example, when there was the other golden generation, when all the other players didn't really seem to like each other. But I do think he's limited tactically. And I think that came to the fore in that final in 2021, when Italy could not believe that he did not go to his bench earlier, considering the talent they had on that bench. And you could say that Bellingham, Saka, Grealish and that sort of thing were at different stages of their career. They were younger and that sort of thing. But I think there was a feeling on the Italy bench, it's like he could kill us if he goes for these guys. And he didn't until it was too late. And so, to lose a final at home in which you take the lead in with everything that the atmosphere at that game was so hostile to anyone who was not English, and to lose it, that's unless they win this tournament, that will echo in history.
It's like they haven't been able to understand what to do when they get the 1-0 advantage. I think that this has been one of the England's main problems. The fact that when they were 1-0 leading the game, they didn't go for the second, and that has costed them.
Daniel.
I think one interesting factor that has maybe been slightly overlooked in England is there was an enormous pressure of playing. Well, England played all of that tournament other than the Ukraine game in the last Euros at Wembley, and that brought with it, particularly on the day of the final, this kind of fervent, thick atmosphere around the country, around the game itself. Everything felt incredibly on edge. I think in the past, England, one of the great things that Southgate has done is that in the past, England squads were really poor travellers. They didn't all of the cliques within the squad, all of the fractures within the team dynamic seemed to be amplified when they went away from home. I think that's changed now. We mentioned the win in Naples. There does seem to be a steeliness to England away from home, which when now playing a complete tournament away from Wembley, I think that will help them. I think there'll be a dynamic. It also really helps that their two best players at the moment, Harry Kane and Jude Bellingham, are fairly at home in Germany. So there is a comfort to that. And I just think that I think they will be happier playing these games in Germany bizarrely than they were playing some of those games at Wembley. That group stage in Euro 2020 was like a febrile atmosphere within supporters kind of booing the team because they were slow starting, and you'll see that again in the pre-tournament friendlies. If England don't play very well, there'll be groans in the crowd. I actually think they'll be pretty pleased to get to Germany.
Interesting. All right, that's England. Next up, we'll talk about the team that very nearly brought home the World Cup trophy last December, France.
Why are you saying that?
Well, I'm saying it's in pride, you know, like you nearly got the World
Jules, the
Cup.
final's okay, mate.
Oh, yeah, it's a
Finals are
positive.
Yeah,
Nearly
I mean,
retained it.
You didn't say England, who won the World Cup in 1966.
No,
well done
sure.
to them.
James, do you need to go, or are you going to stick around for a France
I'll listen
chat?
to France.
All right,
Ah,
super.
My boy Jules.
Staying for the best.
There you go. Should we play in the penalties from the?
No?
We're not playing in the penalties from the World Cup. Okay.
Ah, thank you very
Again, it
much.
was. I was just because penalties so dominant.
Yeah.
Such a big theme in
No,
international
I know.
tournaments these
It
days.
is. It
Let's
is.
talk about France, Jules. Heartbreak in Qatar,
Yeah,
losing the biggest game of all on penalties.
yeah.
Now you're back in Germany, where you also lost the World Cup on penalties.
That's right. Yeah.
Last time.
Yeah.
But what a squad you brought to this
Yeah.
tournament.
Yeah, against Italy as well. That remember in Rotterdam in 2000.
Oh, yeah.
The golden goal. I'm all for the golden goal to come back.
David
be fair.
Trezeguet.
David
Nice.
Trezeguet.
Would you
Uh,
need it though?
You never know. We might. We
Okay.
might need it.
What a squad you've brought along.
Yes.
Is it the best squad at the tournament?
I mean, that's been the
Yes.
narrative before every tournament for the last
Has it?
3 or 4
I'm
tournaments.
just using
no?
an old notes. France
Okay.
best squad.
You've
question
opened the
mark.
2014
Yeah.
Google Doc from
Italy
Brazil,
can't
yeah.
score. Yeah.
Okay.
It is the best squad. I mean, maybe Portugal in terms of depth
Yeah.
have something quite similar, or in every line. I mean, Alvaro mentioned 2 or 3 Spanish players as well there, but yeah, it is a really good squad. There's been a few injuries before, so just before you go, like a few doubts in Mike Maignan, who didn't play at the end of the season, with Kingsley Coman as well. But they seem to be all there, all happy, all fit now. So it's just down to the preparation and then getting into it.
What about the return of N'golo Kante?
Ah, N'golo Kante, N'golo Kante. Nobody saw that coming.
Well, your rendition of that song.
Yeah. We could play the real song, like the way the players sing better than I do. But that was obviously the song in 2018.
Yeah.
He's small. He beats Leo Messi, he stops Leo Messi, blah blah blah.
What kind of condition is he in?
It looks great. So now they've been a week at Clairefontaine, a week tomorrow, when we record the show. And to be fair, he's looked great. I know he's 32 and he's obviously a season in Saudi Arabia, which is not the same, although he's been injury-free. He's played 42 games, I think, so far this season. And again, we don't know. We can see him at training doing well until we see him in games, and proper games, not just the friendlies that are going to come. That are 2 friendlies that are pretty pointless, I think, in terms of opposition. We won't know until that first game against Austria, and then the Dutch, especially in the second game. So we see, but he's happy to be there. Everybody's happy to have him there. Deschamps kept that one quiet because we'd been briefed on who was going to be there, etc., and we all kind of wrote the same things. But the one name that he kept private and secret was N'Golo Kante coming back. So nobody saw that one coming. And I guess it's also the experience, and we go back to experience, which I think is something very big. You can have Tchouaméni and Camavinga playing in midfield with Griezmann. Kante brings you something else. He's been there many, many times, obviously.
Griezmann, who was such a force at the World Cup in Qatar, and then up top you got Mbappe as well. With players like that, you've got a chance in any game, Jules. Where are the issues, though, for France? What are the concerns?
I don't know. We could look. We did it with England. You could look at the starting 11, and I don't see, sincerely, honestly, with all my modesty, as you know, I don't see any weakest link there.
No.
Maybe a right back, whether it's Koundé, Pavard, or Kroos who plays. But in the other position, we are pretty loaded. I know it sounds bad. It's true.
So why might you not win this
Because
Euros?
we're going to take this for granted, as we do often.
2021 or 2020, to give it its official title, you got knocked out by Switzerland. And
Yeah,
again, it was a similarly loaded team. So
Yeah, and we were 3-1 up with 10 minutes to go, and the players thought, this is it. We are in the quarterfinals. They're already starting thinking about the quarterfinals, where we would be staying, how the family would get there, because it was still a COVID, Euros almost. And I think they took their eyes off the ball for 10 minutes, and Switzerland scored 2 goals. It went to penalties, and then, in the penalty shootout, Jan Sommer was better than N'golo Kante. So it was down to that. But really, there was, in the 80 minutes that they played, there was no match, and Switzerland were no match to them. So this is where I fear a little bit, is that kind of attitude coming back. But if you look at front three of Dembele, Thuram and Mbappe with the season that they've had, it's pretty great. In midfield, if Kante is really at the level that we hope he is, with him and whoever plays with Griezmann and Kante, the third one, Rabiot, Camavinga, Tchouaméni, whoever, is still pretty impressive. And defensively, Saliba, Konate, Upamecano are the two question marks that people have because they haven't played well and haven't played much in the second half of the season. But really, it's a really good team. So there was a very interesting debate last week because we saw Griezmann in the press conference and he said, we know what we have to do to go far in this competition is to be very good defensively. So then we go back to the old debate and we can have this debate with Southgate and England as well. Because Deschamps doubled up the next day when we asked him the question. He said, yeah, you win these tournaments by being the best team defensively. This is where you win. Hence the reserve that Daniel has on England, which I completely understand. What maybe you can have with Italy with the injuries. Maybe you can have with Spain if it's Laporte who has played in Saudi Arabia, or Lenormand, or even Kubasi at 17 and Lenormand, whoever plays. And I think both Griezmann and Deschamps are right. The problem is that the players that France have in this squad should not already be talking and thinking about how strong defensively we would be, which would be very pragmatic. We would be very happy to let the ball to the opposition, even Austria, even Poland, and then hit them on the counter and just be very solid defensively, like in 2018, for example. And I think there's a lot of people in France who are not really too happy with this kind of style of play and mindset.
Just very quickly, how important is Camavinga here? Because honestly, I don't think that French fans expected him to be that good at this stage. But, he's running the show in Spain in many games as well. How important is he now? Is he going to play with Kante and Tchouaméni and Rabiot?
No, so Griezmann and Kante would be the two certain to start, and then the third man in the three midfielders would be either Camavinga, Rabiot, or Tchouaméni. One of the three, depending on fitness, depending on the opposition, maybe. I think Camavinga will come off the bench more than start because Rabiot, I think he's ahead of him in the pecking order, and Tchouaméni probably as well. So we see, but he was a wonder kid in France when he made his debut at Rennes when he was 16. So people love him, and I think he's a big part of that squad. Maybe not as a starter.
Daniel?
Jules mentioned the defence. They've obviously conceded twice in each of the last three games against Greece and obviously the Germany home defeat, which felt relative, maybe more significant for Germany than France, but still, and then kind of scratchy, friendly win over Chile 3-2. Is there different centre-back combinations in each time? Premier League watchers would say it would be Saliba and one more, but is that nailed on?
Yeah, the nail is on Upamecano and Konate, which, again, I think a lot of people struggle a little bit with. Deschamps loves them both together. He thinks they're the best pair. They complement each other the best. And as he said in the March international break, there's something about Saliba that he's just not completely, fully convinced with or fully happy with, which I struggle a little bit to understand and agree with. But I think Konate and Upamecano will start against Austria. And then if things don't go well there, because like you said, that has been a bit of a recurring problem. And again, if you want to win the Euros by being strong defensively, you can't concede 2 goals every game. It's not possible. So we'll have to see. I think Saliba could come into the team very quickly if Upamecano and Konate are a bit wobbly in that first game.
Are France looking forward to facing Netherlands again?
Yeah, I think so, because they're always good games. And I think there was, you mentioned in qualifiers and the 2 Kylian braces, but also we played them in the Nations League before where we lost in Amsterdam, I think it was. So it's not always straightforward, and you know how much I love the Dutch guy sat on that bench and how great I think he is. So it should be good. There's just something usually that happens with Deschamps and this team where when the competition starts, when we go back to those friendly against Chile and against Germany and the game before that against Greece, where they get that ruthlessness back on. And yeah, this team is maybe not as experienced as the one in 2018, for example, because there's no Lloris, there's no Pogba, there's no Matuidi. Those kind of guys have gone now. Giroud is still there. He's really the last of the Mohicans still in that squad. But you can expect them to turn something on. And I think the Austria game is going to be tough to start with, but then it's all on that Dutch game in the second game.
James, you're about to leave us. What do you think about France?
Come on.
I think they're a very good, talented side, nice. James. I think they'll no doubt be able to draw upon all of those Paris-born and bred players.
If you want a training to play an 11-a-side game to get ready for a game,
Yeah.
that leaves you one player out. So for all the people who say, why did they only call 25 or not 26 when you can go up to 26? The reason is very often that then he leaves you the perfect number for 3 goalkeepers and then 11v11 in your outfield players to be able to play. And also, it's 22 outfield players for your drills at training. It's easier than to have an even number at 23.
There you go, James.
There you go.
There you go.
Every day's a school day.
It certainly is. Well, listen, class is over for you. Many thanks for being with us today. We're going to be speaking to you during the Euros from Germany, so I'm looking forward to that. Have a great trip out there. Magnificent. James Horncastle. Next up, hey, let's talk about some other people who are going to be in Germany. Germany. What an opener that's going to be, eh? Germany against Scotland, Daniel. You're looking forward to that?
Yeah, I am. I think the really interesting thing about Germany is I was looking a couple of months ago at kind of some odds on top goal scorer for each country. And Nicholas Füllkrug was the clear favourite for Germany, and Kai Havertz was like way out at like 8 or 9 to 1. And then Havertz started scoring for Arsenal. Füllkrug stopped scoring so much for Dortmund, although he's still very effective. And that's basically completely flipped, and Havertz is now the favourite to be top Germany goal scorer. It does feel like he's going to have a very, very good tournament if Germany are going to go deep, because I know they have that counter-attacking threat with Sane and Gnabry and Musiala, but you do need someone to finish off those moves. That felt like the issue at previous tournaments. And yeah, I think if Havertz is going to play as that central striker, then it's going to be a really fluid, interesting front three. I think they'll be really watchable.
But certainly were watchable under Nagelsmann when they seemed to get it together a bit, those friendly victories against France and Netherlands in March.
I think for me the key is Toni Kroos, and his return to this team obviously makes a massive difference. Musiala and Wirtz are super talented and super good, and they will be for the next 15 years. There's no problem. Whoever plays as a 9, probably Kai Havertz. Okay, I think for me the key is Toni Kroos with the ball, without the ball. I think for him to come back in that team when he did as well in March, only a few weeks before the Euros, changed everything, changed the whole dynamic for Nagelsmann himself, for the whole team to have someone like him. And now that he's won the Champions League, now that he's announced the retirement as well after, this is his last ever few games, so 3 for sure, or 2 at least. Then if they're through, he might be rested for the 3rd one. And then after that, who knows how many more. But yeah, for me, Kroos is not just the most important player in that team, but also the fact that he returns has changed the whole dynamic.
Set up the perfect finale to
Exactly, really.
headbutting someone.
And we
in the
kind of
final,
want him
huh?
to win, do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Not really, because we don't want Germany to win, but we
Well-
kind of do. Yeah, I know.
There are a little bit of Zinedine Zidane vibes in 2006. We knew that it was the end for him, and he did a very good tournament up till that moment. But yeah, Germany, I think they've got a lot of technical players. The technical ability of their midfield is very impressive, because he's not only Toni Kroos, but Ilkay Gundogan has been clearly the best player of Barcelona this season, and he's still, the best player, or one of the best players in the world between the lines. When he gets the ball, he can play one-touch football, one-twos. So I think that Germany will probably depend a lot on the technical ability of their midfielders. We are not going to see the Kimmich-Goretzka axis anymore, because Goretzka is not in the squad. So that, plus the input that the Bayer Leverkusen players can put in Germany, will be very interesting, because Florian Wirtz, Andrich, even Ta, I think that they are bringing something very positive to the team that Nagelsmann can benefit from.
Excellent. Sounds like there's going to be loads of teams who are going to be fun to watch. Germany, Spain, we were saying before, France certainly sound like they should be in England too. Amongst all of them, though, possibly the team who sound the easiest on the eye are this Roberto Martinez, Portugal's side. The talent in their ranks. Cristiano Ronaldo, Leao, Bernardo Silva, João Felix, Diego Jota, Gonzalo Ramos. It's crazy how many options Martinez has. And for a team that used to be pretty stultifying to watch, boy, have they changed.
Yeah, and you didn't even mention Bruno Fernandes there, which is a kind of evidence of exactly what you're saying. And that chance creation from wide and central areas is going to be phenomenal for Portugal, and it's going to be everything, because we're not going to expect Cristiano Ronaldo to do an awful lot of movement outside of where he wants to be in between the frame of the goal. I think Portugal might win it. They're my kind of, I think I'd see no reason other than what we've talked about with managers, with Roberto Martinez's experience in international football. He is a lovely man. He is a kind of optimistic football manager, both tactically and personality-wise. But there is a question mark about his kind of, I don't know, maybe stomach for the fight in those biggest games. That's going to be the question, I think, whether Portugal can kind of win ugly as well as being beautiful on the edge of the penalty area.
They did finish qualifying with a 100% record, the only team to do so. It is the best qualifying campaign that Portugal have ever had. What do you think? Portugal to win it? Is that crazy talk, Alvaro, Jules?
No, it's not a crazy talk. I think that they are going to be extra competitive. Maybe it tells you a little bit about the short population of the country. The fact that 3 players of the Portugal squad are playing in Saudi Arabia, one of them being Cristiano Ronaldo. He was always going to be there. But maybe the pool of players they've got is not as endless as in some other countries, but still, they've got every possible asset, really, because they've got the experience, the youth, the technique. Vitinha, we haven't mentioned Vitinha. His games against, in the Champions League this season have been phenomenal. And I would like to single out one man, Pepe, 41 years old. He's going to be commanding that defense, most likely. It's incredible.
It is. Jules?
The only question mark, really, and as much as I love Roberto Martinez too, is that with Belgium, with great squads, he never did it either. So things will have to change. He will have to be better. Certainly, personally, I think he would agree to that, to lead this team all the way.
We're going to be doing a second preview show in a week's time, listener, detailing some of the other teams and stories that are going to be unfolding in Germany. But let's just finish off then with your pick for champions come July 14th in Berlin. Alvaro, who do you think?
I'm going to be very boring here. I'm going to go for France.
Are you going to go for France?
Yeah.
You don't think penalties are involved in this one then?
Whatever it is,
Don't
yeah.
listen to him.
Right. Okay, Jules, what about you?
England, all the way, guys.
You're
Finally.
just saying that
No,
because you
no,
are just saying that.
No, I'm not.
Your mind works.
I'm not. Southgate all the way. Finally, and then he can retire and leave the national team. This is their year.
But
It
who
has
do you
to
really
be.
think?
It's them, I promise you. It's them. It's their turn.
Daniel?
I probably think France, but I've touted Portugal now, so I'll stick with them. The kind of Cristiano Ronaldo is an inevitable factor.
All right. Excellent. Listener, I do hope you'll be joining us in a week's time then as we, as I say, follow up this with all the latest news just ahead of the big kickoff in Germany. For now, it's many, many thanks to Seb and Michael and James Horncastle, Jose and Alvaro and Jules and Daniel Storey and Rachel and producer Charlie in the booth. We'll see you in a week's time. For now, from all of us here, it's goodbye. The Totally Football Show podcast is available 3 times a week, bringing you all the football news you could reasonably be expected to care about. We've got views, we've got stats, we've got analysis, we've got some of the best football writers around, and the whole thing is absolutely free. So have a listen on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or all the usual places by clicking on the link below.